There was a season in my life where everything I thought was stable fell apart. Just got out of the army, trying to build a life, got a new job, well, for about a year and a half as a project manager, saved money, got our credit spotless, bought a new house for my wife and three kids. We had I think it was about a year old at the time. Anyway, when we got our new house, and then my marriage ended. I found out my wife had been unfaithful to me with my next door neighbor, my new next door neighbor. And for a while, I did not know how I was going to move forward. I was completely helpless. I've been through some intense challenges in my life. Been pushed mentally and physically in ways that force you to find out what you're really made of. This was a lot different. This was totally different. This was quiet, alone, personal. The battle wasn't outside of me like I was used to. The battle was inside my head. You know, before I ever faced any serious challenges in life, I was just a young guy, 18-year-old kid. You know, like any other 18-year-old kid. Went into the army. Was taught a lot of things. I realized how powerful our mind really is. But through hard experiences, I learned something that applies to everyone. Your mind will tell you to quit long before you actually need to. You know, when my marriage ended, that voice showed up again to quit. Just quit, give up. It's not worth it. You failed, you know, over and over and over. I wasn't used to failing. I was completely devastated, to say the least. That's putting it mildly. Oh man, it was rough. I didn't want to believe what was going on. I did not want to believe my marriage was over. But, you know, after something like this happens, I mean, it felt like a knife going through me. And I had been wounded in combat. And it hurt, but this hurt so much worse. Like I've never felt this kind of pain. There were nights where I did not think I was going to be okay. I mean, there was a lot of nights. There were moments where the future looked empty, like I didn't have anything to look forward to. And here I had three kids. They were all young. I think my oldest was, at the time, was 5, 3, and just turned 1. I had things going on in my head that I was trying to stop. Very dark thoughts. A lot of thoughts, a lot of bad thoughts. But I couldn't, I had to stop these thoughts from taking over my life. I had to. There was no way around it. There was no ifs, ands, or buts. I had to move forward. You know, I had 3 kids, you know, they were my life. Ever since I got out of the army, I mean, those kids were my life. That's what I lived for. I mean, I busted my ass for about 2 years straight, just working nonstop, saving money, paying things off, you know, just because I wanted my wife and kids to have the best. I wanted to buy them a nice home. My wife was a stay-at-home, my ex-wife was a stay-at-home mom. You know, that's the kind of life that we chose. You know, I was making 6 figures, so, you know, plus I had my retirement pay. So we were doing all right financially. But after this happened, it changed dramatically. I mean, so if anybody's going through the same thing, I feel you. I know exactly what you're feeling. And believe me, those thoughts will get a little bit more dimmer and dimmer each day that goes by. They do get dimmer. Believe me. I know it's rough. I know it's very rough. I questioned everything. I thought, my God, here I am. I'm a retired Special Forces Sergeant Major. I've been through hell and back. I was on top of the world, I was cocky, but not arrogant, I was very sure of myself, physically fit, loved my wife, loved my kids, loved everybody. I was going. It was going great. Everything was going great. So I thought. But man, I'll tell you, this really this did it for me. This was several years ago. I've moved on since then. A lot of things have happened since then. A lot of bad things to me. But, just like everything, you can't just quit. You can't. You have people that love you, people that depend on you, that you have to keep moving on. You have to. I know, God, it's so hard, and I know I get it, man. I do. I get the pain. It's painful as hell. Painful as hell, especially when you get cheated on. It's like it does something to a guy that I don't think a woman experiences this if it was the other way around, but it takes your, I don't know, your ego, your pride, it feels like your manhood's gone. I mean, it's everything. I mean, it takes everything. But you can get it back. You can get it back. In high pressure environments is where I thrived. You learn that the body can handle more than the mind tells it. But the mind is very powerful, let me tell you. Mind is very powerful. The brain, it tries to protect you. It tells you to stop, tells you it's too much. Your body's feeling muscle failure or whatever, when you're going through some of the stuff I'm talking about. It's the same thing with your mind. Your brain's telling your mind, okay, enough's enough. This is too much pain for you. Stop. Just stop. But believe me, don't stop. Don't quit. Things will get better. Things will always get better. I had, like I said, I had a lot of dark thoughts. Lots of dark thoughts. I won't talk about what those were, but I'm pretty sure everybody can figure those out. But as I said, I've got 3 kids that I love to death. They're my world, and now I have a 4-year-old grandson. So, I mean, I live for my kids and my grandchild. I absolutely, and my dog, of course. He's my son too. My kids say that he's my favorite child, which whatever. But no, my dog. He's my best buddy. He's always by my side. He's my service dog, but he's like a pet. He's a pet is what he is. He's a husky, and he's been through everything with me. He's gone through everything with me. So he's a good boy. That dogs, believe it or not, are tremendous help for us. They are tremendous help, mentally and physically. Mentally, I mean, your dog loves you unconditionally, no matter what. No matter what, they love you unconditionally. You can be a billionaire. I could be a billionaire, and he wouldn't have a better life than what he has now. It's funny. He's got the best life there is. He gets anything he wants. He's spoiled, but hey, he's my son. That's why I'm gonna treat him. He's very well taken care of. So divorce tested me in a totally different way. You know, I didn't have any structure. I didn't have anybody to talk to. My mom and dad were still married. You know, I was 45 years old, and my mom and dad had been married for 50 years. So I couldn't ask them any advice about divorce. You know, yeah, I had lots of friends in the Army that went through divorce. I mean, in Special Forces, it's very high, and in the Rangers, it's very high divorce rates, like 85%. I mean, I don't even know why you'd get married in the military. I mean, I was married for about 2 years towards the end. But, yeah, my wife's a lot younger than me. My ex-wife's a lot younger than me. She's, let's see, 14 years younger than me. Yeah. I met her, and she was obviously an adult, but I think maybe that had a lot to do with our split up, you know, because she was so immature, I guess you could say. Which, you know, I'm not giving her any credit. I'm not gonna say, oh well, this is, you know, I'm not gonna give her any excuses. You know, I don't think anybody should ever. It's the worst thing you could do to a partner is cheat on them. That's the absolute worst thing you could do. It's the most deceiviest thing you could do to anybody is deceive them like that. That's, you know, when you have their full trust and then you deceive them. I mean, that's not so good. So, yeah, I'm a firm believer in faithfulness, loyalty, honesty. You know, all those things that, you know, we should have instilled in us. I know I do. I've always had that in me, you know. You know, I've had lots of girlfriends over the years. I've never cheated on one of them. If I had any question about anything, like, well, I want to find a different girlfriend, well, for one, I'm going to break up with them first and then go pursue something else. You don't, you know, that's just wrong to do, especially when you're married and you got the kids involved. But I will say her marriage lasted not very long, and he cheated with my wife at the time, and he was married too. So two families got destroyed. They had 3 kids, we had 3 kids. So, you know, my kids hold a lot of resentment. You know, I've moved on, like, a lot. I'm just talking about it because I know there's a lot of people out there that may be going through this, you know, and maybe something I can help somebody with, you know, questions, advice, just somebody to talk to. You know, I'm here to talk, you know, because it's lonely, you know, when you go through that, because you don't want to obviously broadcast to the world. I was embarrassed that this happened to me. I literally was embarrassed. I was afraid to tell anybody. It was like a week and a half before I even told my mom and dad. You know, I was thoroughly embarrassed. You know, here we just bought this brand new freaking home. I mean, it was the best. I mean, it was everything we wanted in a home. You know, I wanted my kids and my wife to have the best, you know, that I could afford. And yeah, it was you know, I lived in that house for about maybe 2 months, like that. I mean, the houses were far enough apart that, you know, I didn't have to see, but, you know, I tried staying away as much as possible. You know, of course, you know, I had to handle my children too. You know, I couldn't just abandon them. You know, of course, they stayed with her, but most of the time they wanted to stay with me. You know, so and it was very hurtful for them. You know, that's what I think. That's the worst part, is when there's children involved, because, you know, for one, they're too young to understand anything. You know, and it hurts so bad trying to explain things to them. You know, because I didn't know. You know, and this was, you know, 10, 15, or what was it? I can't remember exactly the date, but I mean, it's just several years ago, and I didn't know where to turn to. I didn't know who to go to. I talked to our priest. We were Catholics, and they was wanting us to go to counseling and stuff. But I made my mind up pretty much after I knew that there was no way that I would ever go back. I can't. Once you've broken trust, I mean, I don't know how you can get that back. I mean, if there's anybody out there that's done that, leave a comment, because I would love to talk to you, because I honestly want to know what it's like. I don't, because I don't know, you know. And if you have, and if people's gotten over things and have, moved on, that's great. That is absolutely great. But I just could not see myself again with her. Even over the years, like, I'll say this right now, there's been a lot of times where I felt like she was, want me to take her back, but I won't. And I swore to my kids that I never would. My kids do not ever want me to, uh, you know, get back together with her, ever, no matter what. I mean, not that I've ever talked about it, because I haven't, but they've told me that, that they would never want me to get back together with her. So I'm thinking maybe she said something to them at one time or a couple times. I don't know, but just it's not, it's not me. I couldn't do something like that. No matter how much you tell me that that you've changed and nothing would ever happen again, I still would have that in my head. I mean, and I think a lot of people are like that. That, man, you got kind of like you have to sleep with one eye open type thing. So yeah, it was some of the experiences that I had in my military career, I mean, this was nothing like that. I mean, this was absolutely the worst pain that I've ever felt in my life. The worst pain that I've ever felt in my life. I've never been heartbroken, ever, like this. Yeah, I've broken up with girlfriends, or they've broken up with me, or whatever. But, that kind of stuff, you can tend to move on. But when you have a family, especially a young family, and this happens, I mean, to me, I personally, didn't know what to do. I really didn't. It was, the internet was fairly new, and of course it was accessible and stuff. Don't get me wrong, we had all our gadgets like we do now, but it didn't seem like I was lost. I didn't know where to go, But there are a lot of resources out there and a lot of people to talk to. I would advise talking to a counselor separately, though. If you are going through this, at least talking to a counselor. I talked to my counselor a lot, and I talked to him a lot about what I was going through when it happened. And I had two, I still do, but they helped me a lot, coping with things, and a lot of the counseling that I go through now, like with PTSD and whatnot. And my PTSD is just nothing but anxiety. That's all it is. I'm always on edge, and that's something that they instill in you in the military. You always got to have your head on a swivel, they call it, right? And you do. And I don't know if that's ever going to go away, and that's fine, because at least I'm always alert. I'm always looking out for whatever. But I guess you can't ever be too safe. So yeah, but yeah, I talked to my counselors, and they did help me a lot. My kids, they helped me tremendously. I felt like also I became a better dad to them, because I was, my attention was directed only towards them. I didn't have a partner to tend to also. My attention's always been with my kids. I've always tried to, well, I know I have, because they're adults now, but they're the way they are, I can see that a lot of my influences in a good way has helped them a lot. Like, you know, the way they are. You know, they're all go-getters, you know, I mean, they're just great kids. I love my kids to death, and I love my grandson to death. I mean, they are my absolute life. That's what I live for, you know, and it's all about finding a new purpose, you know, and I mean, those dark thoughts, you just gotta smash those dark thoughts, because, you know, they'll start getting a little bit less painful. I will tell you that. That does get less painful. I personally, I know your first reaction usually after something like this happens is to go and fight the guy or something like that. Strongly discourage that. Yeah, don't ever do anything that's going to jeopardize your freedom or your life or any of that. You know, it's not worth it. It is not worth it. And you know, you hear horror stories all the time, and it's sad, you know, when you hear stuff like that. I hate hearing stories like that, because I know what they are going through, because you feel like your entire world is like taken away from you. In a sense, it is taken away from you for briefly, but you know, you will get over it. I will say that. Definitely get over it. You know, my kids, they give me a new purpose. Of course, you know, I was focused on my kids even when, you know, we were together, but I don't know, it was just different, you know, as a single father. You know, like I said, my attention was completely 100% focused on them. I mean, everything I did was for them. Everything, no matter what it was, everything was for them. You know, I built a good work ethic in all of them. They all got educated and stuff, so I mean, I couldn't ask for better kids. You know, I think that's the prize right there. That's the prize, knowing that you know, succeeded, or whatever you want to call it. You know, when you realize that your kids, you know, are doing well and all that. You know, it's important to make sure your kids are always taken care of. You know, when they're especially when they're young, because you know, it's sad, because they are so young. You know, they don't understand a lot. You know, it's just one of them things that, you know, each person has their own way of talking to their kids, and I think, you know, but most kids are very resilient, you know. So I mean, that's a good thing. Like I said, this was it was humiliating, embarrassing, but you know, just got to realize, you know, things will get better. I will say that things will definitely get better for you. You know, no matter what, they will. Even when your brain is telling your mind to just stop and quit, don't. That's where you got to go past that. You know, just go past that apex, I guess you call it. Go past the apex, and then once you get past that apex, at the very top, you'll start seeing light. It's like, okay, things are getting better, you know. And that's the way you got to do it, and that's the way you kind of got to do everything in life, I guess. I mean, just move past any obstacle that you're facing, and you know, drive on. So I hope you liked the video. It was probably pretty boring, but you know, I know there's a lot of people that's going through the same thing, and if there's anybody that needs a question or wants to talk, leave a comment in the comments, and I will get back to you, and I'd be happy to talk to you. Advice, anything. Just lend an ear, you know. I'm here to give any type of advice that I could possibly give, you know, something that maybe we've all gone through. But yep, well, thanks for watching my video, and y'all have a great day. Thank you.